Hey everybody, and welcome to the first installment in our series of Starcraft 2 tutorials. And today what we're going to be doing is looking at the Terran race. So this tutorial is intended for low level players, so if you're anywhere from bronze to gold, let's say, and you play a specific race. It could be Terran, but actually this tutorial is aimed at players of either the Protoss race or Zerg. So you are familiar with your own race already, and now you're wondering, people are saying scouting is such an important part of the game, and I really need to know the basics of the other races, but if I scout them, I have no idea. Regardless of what I see, I just don't know what all the stuff is that they have in their base, and so I don't really know what to do with any information I get about them. So that's kind of the approach that we want to take today. Is we want to look at Terran as not your main race, and we'll show you a little bit how the race works, what all the buildings look like, what they do, and how you can basically what information you're getting by scouting one of their buildings and seeing what they're doing at the moment, so you know how to react to that. So how Terran works, basically, this is their command center. That's their main building, the thing they will build at their expansions and everything. This is where they build their workers. And by the way, if you're wondering, this is just a unit test map that I've got loaded up here. I can just build stuff instantly, so this is not representative of how the game actually works. It's just to demonstrate stuff. So this is where they build their SCVs, their workers. Then usually the first building you'll see out of a Terran, and you need to be able to recognize that, it's a barracks. So for Terran, they have specific production facilities that they use to build different units. So they have first off the racks, or barracks. Here you can build Marines, Marauders, and Reapers, and Ghosts. And my version is in German, that's my native language, so but don't mind the text here, just look at the pretty pictures. So yeah, they build Marines, these guys. Oopsie, that lags a little. They build Marauders from barracks and Ghosts. That's usually the units you'll see. You'll rarely ever see what are they called? Yeah, Reapers these days. So these are the basic units, and for really low level play you mostly see Marauders and Marines, mostly in a ratio of like 2 Marines or 3 Marines and 1 Marauder. That's what you'll see. So, and the more racks you see from them, so I'll build, oh, I can't build more racks, why not? Oh, need to build a supply depot. Yeah, that's right. Terrans need to build supply depots first. So I'll build a bunch of racks. So usually what you'll see when you venture into a Terran's base is they will have a bunch of barracks in there. And barracks, oh yeah, let's go over the other production buildings first. So this is for infantry, right? Marines and Marauders are going to come out of those guys. Then you have the factory, where they can produce Hellions, tanks, siege tanks, and Thors. So Hellions, siege tanks, and Thors. Well, my game is lagging a little bit, but should be fine. So these are the units that come out of the factory, and we'll go over them in just a little bit. And the starport is mainly for medvacs, these guys. For Vikings, they're anti-air units, and mostly you'll see banshees used as well. And there is also ravens, which are for detection and yeah, defensive purposes mainly, and battle cruisers, of course. Battle cruiser operational, he should be saying, but in German it's something else, of course. So these are the units out of the starport. These are the ones from the factory, and these guys are the ones from the barracks. And barracks are going to be by far the most common production buildings. Then goes the factories, and then but you'll usually also see starports. So that's how Terran works in terms of production. So if they want to build a lot of stuff, they need you know, just more barracks or more factories, more starports. And depending on what you see in their base, like if they have only barracks, that means you'll see only this kind of unit out of coming from them. So that's what you need to defend against. If you see a lot of factories or even just one factory, then you know, okay, it's one of these three. And here from the starport, you'll see some of those, and we'll go over them in just a little. And then the next important thing is that you can also scout is what kind of add-ons they have on their buildings. So one thing would be, so they have 2 add-ons for each building, and they can be swapped, the add-ons, so I can swap 2 buildings and also, you know, get the factory and put it on this tech lab, or the other way around. They are interchangeable, so that's very nice for Terran players. And there's the tech lab. I'll switch these back. So there are tech labs. Oopsie. Playing around too much, I know. Tech labs, which are these guys. And reactors, which are these. So what tech labs do is they give you additional building options. So without tech lab, you see you can build only marines from a barracks. With tech lab, I can also build marauders, reapers, and ghosts. And ghosts also require this building. It's a ghost academy, which you'll rarely see in low level play. So that's the tech lab, and they can also research stuff here, and then you'll see the tech lab glowing, and that takes a while to research these things. And that's what a tech lab is for. It gives you additional options and gives you research options that improve these units. So for example, Stimpack is one option that Terrans can research here, and everyone knows what Stimpack looks like. So that's that. Ooh, we need a med back. Okay, so that's what tech labs do. Then you have reactors, what they enable you to do, which is something I cannot really show you here because units here on this map are produced instantly. But what happens is, instead of being allowed to make 1 marine at a time, with a reactor here, you can make 2 marines at a time. So instead of building another barracks, which is 150 minerals, you can just build a reactor to a barracks, and then you can build twice the number of marines at the same time. And this is only for marines, not for marauders. For marauders, you definitely need a tech lab. And there are no, what were those things called? Tech reactors, like in the single player campaign, where you can then, you know, get the benefits of both a reactor and the tech lab on the same building. So this is not available in multiplayer mode. And alright, then to the factory. Without a tech lab, a factory can build only Hellions, which I'll show you. So only a Hellion is available, and if you build a reactor, you can just build 2 Hellions at a time. So let's make another factory, like this. So now, as soon as you see a Terran player have a factory with the tech lab on it, you know it's either going to be these guys, these Thors, or tanks, and most likely you'll see tanks. So this is what the tech lab is for on the factory, and it gives also research options as always, of which the most notable one is the one for siege mode. So tanks, of course, we all know they like to siege, and then they'll kill all your stuff in like 1 or 2 shots. So this is this upgrade Terrans need a tech lab for and need to research it in there. And then you have the starport. Usually you see starports with reactors on them, because that enables, and I'll just quickly build another one, that enables them to build 2 medvacs, which are the healers of the Terran race, or 2 Vikings at the same time. And Vikings are for anti-air. They're really good against stuff like battle cruisers or carriers or basically anything in the air, because they have such a huge range. And if you see a tech lab on a if you see a tech lab on a starport, then you know, okay, it's either going to be ravens or Banshees, which is the most common, or battle cruisers, which is more of a late game option usually. Except for crazy people doing battle cruiser rushes, but that's usually not an issue. So the most common thing by far is the Banshee, which is a really good unit for harassing mineral lines. So you just fly it over to the mineral line and kill a bunch of workers with it, and just fly away when when the opponent notices that. And the most notable upgrade in here is Cloak for Banshees, which enables Banshees to cloak, and then you need detection in order to be able to see and combat them. So that's the Banshee, and that's the starport. So that's kind of how the Terran arsenal and army works and their production facilities. And so I'll just quickly go over the most common army composition that they have. Usually you'll see a Terran go in the really early game. You will see lots of barracks, usually with maybe one tech lab, where they will also research an upgrade like Stim, and then combat shields also for Marines. That gives Marines 10 additional hit points. And then you'll see, I can reset the tech. Now you see a shield on the Marine, and now you see no shield on the Marine. So if I do that again, you can see that they get shields and they get 10 hit points, 10 more hit points. So what you'll see usually when you scout the Terran is they will have anywhere from 1 to 3 barracks in the early game, and judging on what kinds of add-ons they have. So if they have 1 tech lab or even 2 tech labs, for example, if you're Protoss, many Terrans know that Marauders turn stuff to goo, as Husky would put it. So if they just build a ton of Marauders, they can kill all your gateway units usually. So if you see a Terran going lots of tech labs, barracks with tech labs, you know, oh, it's going to be a lot of Marauders. How am I going to counter that? Or if you see lots of barracks with no add-ons or lots of barracks with reactors, you know, oh, it's going to be a lot of Marines. So you will need to counter those. And this is in the early games, you're going to be seeing lots of Marines and lots of Marauders usually from Terrans, and this is what you want to counter. Some of them will go for relatively quick tanks, but usually you'll see definitely one or two pushes with just Marines and Marauders. And later they can go either for siege tanks, they can also get the starport and get some medivacs to support the Marine Marauder combination. And this is commonly called MM for Marine Marauder, or MMM for Marine Marauder Medvac, and it's a really potent combo. So they just stim and run and, you know, shoot all your stuff and kill everything in sight. So that's that. What else do we need to know? Thor. How am I going to approach this? What do we need to learn? So that's kind of how Terran works usually. And so what you need to be aware of when you're looking at their base or when you see their units, they can either go Marine Marauder Medvac. They can go for siege tanks with their siege mode, which is something that needs a specific counter, or they can go for Banshees. Maybe with cloak, maybe without cloak. If they do have cloak, then you will need detection. And that's also something you need to counter specifically. And again, depending on what number of barracks you see and what add-ons you see, you can understand what their composition is going to be. That means how many Marines are going to be there versus how many Marauders, and so you know how to counter them. So let's go over that. So and just quickly about this map, how this map works. It's just a unit test map, that's what it's called. You can just search for unit test map and download it and play it. How this works is you have units of every and buildings of every race on either side here, the blue ones versus the red ones, and you can build a bunch of units and then just just send them into combat against each other. Alright, so let's do the following. Let's just go over common unit combinations, or just yeah, the most basic common unit combinations, and see how we can counter them. So first off, let's look at Terran versus Protoss. Let's look at the most common situation. Terran is going for a standard, some Marauders. Let's get 2 more. Oops, just need 2 more. This number of Marine Marauder, that could be a push they do at around maybe 8 minutes or so into the game with stim and combat shields. And how stim works, once again, is just they can use it, costs 10 life, or actually 20 life for Marauders, alright, and 10 life for Marines, and they will run a bunch faster, and they will also attack with, what is it? I don't even know, like 50% higher attack rate or something. So that's an army you'll face relatively early in the early game. Relatively often, I wanted to say. So then let's just assume you're familiar with Protoss. Protoss is your main race, and now we'll just build an army to counter this. So if you just go with the standard, you know, you just build a bunch of zealots, and you build a bunch of stalkers, and you have 1 or 2 sentries. That's a decent combination or composition against Marine Marauder, but you'll need a ton of stuff to actually combat them, especially if they have stim. So what you usually want to do is just have a lot of stuff. If you have your 4 gates or something, or 3 gates and a robo, that's going to work, but the ideal combination for you to counter Marine Marauder is if you go something like 3-gate robo, you get an immortal or 2 to combat the Marauders. And this is the idea behind that, is that immortals do 50 damage versus armored units, and Marauders is exactly what armored units are. Oh, not shoot at them, otherwise they'll start running towards me. So that's something you can do against, and the more Marauders there are in the Terran's army, and the more... Here's the decision you have to make when you're scouting a Terran. You see lots of tech labs, for example. Let's just assume... Can I kill this? Or take a while. So if they have lots of tech labs, and if you see them making lots of Marauders, you want to get some more immortals from your robo facility. Or if you don't have a robo facility and you're scouting early, and that's something you can do, you can say to yourself, oh man, I really need some immortals to combat those Marauders, because they really tear Marauders apart, and I can show you. So I think we don't need more than 2 immortals against these 4 Marauders, even with stim. They just demolish them, and with a little bit of micro, it's ridiculous. So that's one of the decisions you can make. That's why it's often more intelligent to not go straight for a 4-gate, but go for something like 3-gate robo or 2-gate robo. And I think that 3-gate robo, especially in the early, at the lower levels of play, so let's say anything up to platinum, is fine, is a great build. Because you can get out immortals if you want to, and you can also get a lot of gateway units out from your gateways if you need them, depending on what the composition is. And if the Terran is going something like lots of reactors, or just lots of barracks without any add-ons, you can assume there's going to be a lot of Marines. And what you can do against Marines, there's many things you can do against Marines. The most efficient, and I would say the least micro or control or work intensive, so when you can just, you know, basically just attack move into the enemy army, is if you make a ton of stalkers. So just go for mostly stalkers, maybe put 1 or 2 zealots in front. You could also add on just a sentry for guardian shield, which is very good against Marines. So with this kind of army, that's the best way to counter lots of Marines, and we can get ourselves some more Marines here. So we can demonstrate this. So this army on the right should, well, it's going to be somewhat close if we use stim pack, but something like this. It's going to be interesting. Let's use stim. Let's use guardian shield here. Okay. Yeah, Marines with stim pack are really strong, but basically that's the Stalkers is something you can do against Marines. It's really useful. What works is to have some zealots in front tanking. Oopsie, we don't need you, Immortality. And then the zealots will tank some damage and the stalkers will survive. I just had a few too many Marines there. But that's basically one of the ideas you can use against lots of Marines. There you go. That's kind of the way to deal with lots of Marine Marauder. And as the game continues, as the game goes a little longer, what you can do is also research charge for your zealots. And then zealots become a really useful unit too against mass Marines, because they run up to them instantly and just slice them apart. Which wouldn't work really against Marines without the charge upgrade. So let's see that in action. And I'm trying to micro a little bit, but it's really tough if zealots have charge. You see, they just slice them apart. Oopsie, I don't want you to kill the bases here. Thank you very much. Alright, that's another option. And of course, you can also, if you have your robo already, and you see, okay, the Terran has a lot of Marines in the later stages of the game, just get some Colossi, and they will take care of Marines as well, without any problem whatsoever. So that's how to counter Marine Marauder, and let's just quickly go over the next most common unit, which is the Siege Tank. And here basically the idea is that siege tanks do a lot more damage against... wait, I'll just make a bunch more. Oopsie, not Hellions. I'll just siege them up here. So the problem is siege tanks do a lot of damage against armored units, which is a lot of what Protoss has. Especially stalkers. If you make a lot of stalkers, whoopsie, I don't want you to shoot yet. If you make a lot of stalkers, you'll have trouble against Terran with siege tanks, because if you let your stalkers run in there, they take so much damage, they will just evaporate against siege tanks. At least if you put them in front. I'll just reset the tech here, so the zealots don't have charge anymore. The thing is, against non-armored units, siege tanks do only 35 damage as opposed to 50. So zealots are a good way. Oopsie, come on, stay back. So zealots live a lot longer against siege tanks. Look, it takes 4, 5, 6 or something shots to kill a zealot, and it takes a lot less shots. 1, 2, 3, 4. And only 4 shots to kill a stalker. So zealots are a lot more cost effective against siege tanks, especially they cost a lot less and they don't cost any gas. So one thing you can do against siege tanks is just have an army where you have lots of zealots in the front, and you can have whatever you want in the back. And as long as the enemy doesn't really, your opponent doesn't really tell his tanks to fire at the stalkers and everything, then you'll be fine. So we can try this, for example. Just probably going to be a little too little. Yeah, but it's almost going to work. Come on, kill the tanks. Yeah, so that works. And with just a pure stalker army, that would have been really problematic to kill those tanks. I mean, this is all really a little Oopsie, siege tech. With this number of stalkers, they're just going to get demolished. Yeah, they kill one tank, maybe they will kill two. Maybe all of them, but it's really, this army was much more expensive to lose than the other. We just didn't have any zealots to tank, and that's a huge problem. Okay, so that's how to counter siege tanks, basically. And if you want, for against siege tanks, once again, zealot charge is really, really good. So let's see. Let's get a bunch of zealots. These have charge now. So let's just send them in. And they will get to the tanks a lot faster. And tanks will splash themselves, and zealots just with charge just rip apart tanks. So that's basically one way to deal with siege tanks. And one more way would be to get immortals. Once again, because tanks are armored units, and immortals are really good against armored. Plus, so they do really good damage against tanks. Plus, they have an ability called, man, what is it in English? Yeah, some kind of enhanced shield. So they take a maximum of 10 damage as long as they have, as long as they still have some shields available to them. So instead, the tanks doing like 50 damage against armored, which immortals are armored, but as long as they have their shields, they take only 10 damage. So that is really ridiculous. So these immortals, they are going to take hardly any damage from the tanks, and they're going to tear them apart. So as you see, the immortals still have shields, every single one of them. They all have their shields left. They didn't take any permanent damage, except this one who was damaged before from the Marauder fight. So that's another way to deal with tanks. And the last combination, the last special tactics unit Terran has, is the Banshee here, which a common situation would be, you know, we have some probes just hanging around here. Let's get some more probes. And you know, they're just doing their stuff. They're mining or whatever, doing their thing, running around there. And we'll just bring in some Banshees. What's the hotkey here? T. Oops. So what Terrans will often do, they will use a Banshee to harass your mineral line. And as long as they don't have cloak, the Banshees, you can just, you know, bring over some stalkers. And the rule is you need at least 2 stalkers to kill a Banshee. With one stalker, it's not going to work. I think, yeah, right. One stalker already went down. So alone he wouldn't have made it against the Banshee. So you need at least 2 stalkers to kill one Banshee. And let's get some more probes and get them patrolling here. And if they do have cloak researched, which now they do, now you're going in, you want to kill the Banshee, and he just said, oh, well, I'll just vanish. And then what you need is an observer, of course, or you need any other form of detection, and some more stalkers, of course, and then you can kill the Banshee. And of course cannons also work, so if we just make a bunch of cannons, that's also one response you can do. Just place 1 or 2 cannons near your mineral line so that the Banshee cannot kill you. Then we don't even need an observer. I just send the observer away, and if the Banshee comes in range of detection range of the cannons, you can. She's still visible even though the cannon is not shooting. Yeah, so that's the way to deal with Banshees. And of course you can choose any other unit that can target air, like sentries, but sentries are not really good in terms of the damage that they're putting out. But phoenixes would also work. That's a common response you also see from pro players. Just, you know, get 1 or 2 phoenixes if you have Stargate tech anyway. And then you can just snipe the Banshee without losing anything. The Banshee can't even attack you. So it has only air to ground damage. It can only target things at the ground, on the ground. Okay, so that's how you can deal with the Terran arsenal as a Protoss player. And alright, so I hope that gives you a good overview over Terran versus Protoss. And so let's just quickly look at what Zerg can do to counter all the Terran units. And I will... oh yeah, I need to use those. Okay, so let's just make a bunch of... I'll just make a bunch of Terran units here. And of course some Banshees as well. Warp, warp. Okay, and let's see what Zerg can do against Terran. First thing, of course, Marine Marauder. And the way to deal with that is just, you know, you can basically make anything. The right response, or the thinking behind making counter units or units to counter this composition here is the following. The more Marauders the Terran has, the fewer roaches you want to have. So if the Terran goes exclusively Marauders, for example, you just want to send in Zerglings. That's all you need, really. So of course we want to have speed. And I'll get a queen so I can do some injects here. So against Marauders, Zergling are the best response, because roaches are going to get torn apart. So what do we have for Marauders? Even 5 roaches shouldn't be able to stand against that. Oh well, they could. Okay, this is because the Terran doesn't have stim, but roaches take they take a beating from Marauders because they do extra damage, twice the damage against armored, and guess what? Roaches are armored. So that's the thinking behind combating Marine Marauder. The more Marines he has, the more roaches you can incorporate, or banelings, of course, which we can morph here. So, you know, Ling Baneling works really well against Marines. That works really well. And the more Marauders he has, the fewer roaches you want to make. And of course, roaches will also work against Marines. They're really good against Marines, actually. But you have to pay attention. If he has a lot of roaches, a lot of Marauders, then you really can't make any roaches, or really you can't overproduce roaches. Yeah, so that works against Marines as well, and you can also counter them with Zerglings, of course, but it's not as efficient as with roaches or speedlings and banelings. So that's the way to deal with Marine Marauder. And when you're engaging Marine Marauder army, make sure you have a lot of stuff. So, you know, like well, if you have Zerglings, you really need a bunch of Zerglings. You can't just have, you know, like a group of this size against... Oops. No, we don't want Reapers. So you just make sure you have enough. Just make sure you have actually a big army if you engage Marine Marauder, because if they have stim, they do a ton of damage. So for example, against this army, if you want to combat them with Ling and Baneling, you'll need a ton of stuff. And maybe I can go over the specific ratios of, you know, how much stuff you need to kill whatever other combination. Maybe you can also try that out for yourself on this map, and you can also maybe I'll just get some videos going about that. So I'm not even sure if this number of Zerglings can actually kill this army, and we'll find out. And I'll not micro anything much. And you see the Zerglings are... Oh well, it's actually pretty close. Oh nice. Yeah, the Zerglings did actually a lot better than I thought. So yeah, but just make sure you have a lot of stuff, especially if you attack a Terran. So that's that, and then you usually get to see a lot of games where, or to play a lot of games where Terran goes siege tanks. Because they do love their siege tanks. Whoa, what's happening here? Oh, not Reapers. Let's get some Marines going. So Tank Marine is a really common combo. So what you want to do against tanks usually is either get Mutalisks. So you can, you can just kite around the Marines, not fly into the Marines, pick off tanks. Oops. Or combat the Marines in just really small groups and pay attention that no Thors get you. And the other thing is just a ton of Speedlings and some Baelings mixed in. So that would also be a way to combat tanks. But it's not as cost effective as going for Mutalisks. So see, the tanks are still alive. It can be really tough to break tank contains. So whenever you get contained, just try to circumvent the contain. Try to not run into the tanks, because that's going to cost you a lot. Yeah, that's that. Don't fight, guys. What else do we have? We have Banshees. So if you encounter Banshees as a Zerg from a Terran, like if you see they're making some starport with the tech lab on it, then that usually means Banshees. And if they're getting gas really early, a second gas really early, that also means that they're going for either siege tanks or Banshees. So you need to be prepared for either of those. And what you can do against Banshees is just make a bunch of queens. Again, it's with Stalkers. The ratio is you need at least 2 queens, usually against 1 Banshee. So these 2 queens should fight off the Banshee, no problem. And especially if you have energy left at your queens, then you can just transfuse, and then it takes even more, or you can fight even more Banshees with just very few queens. So just make a bunch of queens. You usually have a lot of minerals anyway. That's not going to hurt you, and if you don't need the queen for anything else, just use the additional queens to make some creep tumors and just spread your creep like a madman. That's also really helpful. So that's one way to combat Banshees, and of course everything that hits air from Zerg is really good against Banshees. And if they do get Cloak, then just make either Golair and make your one Overlord into an Overseer. Zip. So you have detection, or just get an Evolution Chamber early on and just make one Spore Crawler basically at every mineral line or so, and then fight the Banshees off just with queens. And just make sure you don't go into fights with Banshees where you have fewer than 2 queens per Banshee, because then you will just lose your queens, and that's really not necessary. So that's the Banshee counter, and yeah, basically I would think that that's about it in terms of countering Terran. Of course, if you're playing Terran yourself, then, well, you can just make the same stuff, or just, yeah, like you can also do things like, against siege tanks, go air. That's one occasion where Banshees or battlecruisers would work, because tanks obviously can target air. It's like with Zerg, how you can build Mutalisks to pick off tanks. Against a lot of Marines, you can, for example, build Hellions, because they do extra damage against Marines, against light units, which Marines are. Or you can just go for the same composition as your enemy, as your opponent is going, and just win that way. Yeah, what else is left to say? Yeah, I think that should be it. I think I may have forgotten a bunch of other combinations that Terran is going, or what Terran can do. But that's basically it. So to recap, what we've learned today is that if you do play against a Terran, there's couple of things you can watch out for, especially when you scout their bases. If they take their second gas, especially earlier than you take your second gas, at least as Protoss and as a Zerg, you know, if they're, yeah, just watch how, look at the timings that Terrans take their gases, like around 13 supply would be the first gas usually, and then if they go attack heavy build like Banshees or a lot of siege tanks, then they will take their second gas, let's say before 20 supply definitely. So that's an indicator you can watch out for both as Protoss and Terran and Zerg, to understand what kind of build they're going, what kind of units you will need to make as a response. And as Protoss, you're always fine if you just get a robo. If you see a tech heavy build, so if you understand that either Banshees or tanks are going to be coming, then you will definitely benefit from an observer for cloak detection and from immortals, and you'll see which of those you need, but it will be very useful to have a robotics. And as a Zerg, if you see they're going very tech heavy or gas heavy, then you can just, you know, get 1 extra queen or 2 extra queens and put the Evo chamber down just in case, so you can react with the spore crawler in time and stuff like that. So that's something to watch out for. Then count the number of barracks and look at what add-ons they have. If they're going for lots of reactors on or barracks without reactors, then you know, okay, it's going to be more marines. If they have a lot of tech labs on barracks, you know, oh, it's going to be a lot of marauders. And, you know, choose the appropriate unit to counter marauders or marines. And if you see factory with the tech lab, then you know, okay, it's going to be tanks or Thors. But Thors is a unit that you don't really need to counter specifically. It's kind of good against everything and not really good against anything in particular. So you don't really need to counter that. But siege tanks you need to specifically counter. And if you see, for example, a starport and you see that, okay, they might swap or build a tech lab, or they are building a tech lab on the starport, like if you fly in with your observer into their base, or if you went for a Phoenix build and you get a Phoenix to fly over their base and you see, oh, they're going for a starport with tech lab add-on, then you know, okay, it's going to be Banshees and possibly with cloak. So you need to get anti-air and you need to possibly get detection, so prepare for that with either cannons and observer as a Protoss and some stalkers, or with an Evo chamber and spore crawlers and some additional queens as Zerg. And of course, as Terran, you would be building a missile turret. That would be the best response, because you don't often get ravens, which is something you can do, which can be really useful, but it's a little more for higher level play, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't really talk much about a raven, because it's not really in use much for lower level play. So everything up to, even in Diamond, you don't see much of ravens. So as Terran, you would just build a missile turret and get some marines, and they do just fine against Banshees. Alright, I think that just about covers the basic understanding of the Terran race, how they work, how they produce their stuff, and what basic units there are that you need to watch out for and counter. And yeah, so let me know if you have any feedback or suggestions or ideas for improvement for this kind of format, because I'll likely do another 2 videos with the same idea about Protoss, how to counter Protoss and how to counter Zerg. Yeah, how to scout and how to counter both of these races. And yeah, if you have comments, then just let me know about them, and I might work them into my tutorial next time. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and see you next time. Bye bye.